Thanks for joining us today for another Star Telecom unboxing for Genesys Cloud release for January 2022. In today's conversation, Alec Narancic, a resident workforce management expert, and Edgar Quadra, Star Telecom's solution consultant. We're going to talk about January Genesys Cloud feature releases.
Thanks, Rob. Yeah, so for this week, we are discussing the January 26 release features. Again, another substantial one. There is features in a lot of areas within Genesys for this week. And let's just get right into it. So the first one is Collaborate. So within the Genesys Collaborate group chat specifically, there could be times where I would want to have another person join our group chat conversation, and they would just be automatically added into that group chat. Well, now there's a small little fail safe where Genesys will kind of prompt you, are you sure you want to add this person? So let me just go ahead and show how this new mention kind of works here. So I've got my group chat open here, and let's say I want to go ahead and add Alec or Rob. So let's say try add Alec here. I'm going to click on him. And as soon as I hit enter, you can see here that Genesys is now prompted. Are you sure you want to do this? Or do you want to continue without adding that post? Kind of like a little fail safe there, just to keep productivity high and just to make sure that I don't accidentally add someone that I shouldn't be in my group chat.
Yes, with larger companies, you want to make sure that you're adding the right Alec. So if we've got 400 users on this platform, you want to double check. So that's a good check and balance there.
Yeah. Thanks for that ad there, Rob. Okay. Any other comments you two might have?
It's looking good. It's looking
good.
good.
Perfect.
It's something that was really needed.
Yeah. Perfect. So the next one is under the communicate section, and more specifically under the trunks side. So as telecom admins of Genesys Cloud here, there's a new type of way that we can display outbound caller IDs and kind of select which caller ID we would want to use. So if I just jump into the actual article here, if I scroll down to configuring the sources, so now when a new trunk gets allocated within Genesys Cloud in the telecom section, within that trunk, there's now 4 options or 4 locations where the trunk will pull the caller ID information from. So the first one is it can be set at the trunk level. It could be the caller ID can be set from within the kind of application. So either at the campaign level, so when we do calling on behalf of the campaign, from the queue, or even from the user's profile. So when I set up my little profile there, I can set what caller ID. So it gives the administrators much more flexibility. Oh, and not only that, but we can prioritize which ones to look at first, or which location, which source to look at first for setting the caller ID. This just gives us, from a Genesys kind of perspective, it gives you much more flexibility on which caller ID we want to represent the outbound calling with. Any questions there, guys?
No, no question. I think that's a good thing. We've talked to a lot of our clients about the order that their caller ID goes out. They want to make sure the caller ID makes sense. So giving a client more control over this is a fantastic bonus.
Yeah, we think so too. Okay. So let's move on now through the releases here, and I'm going to hand it over to Alec, and he'll talk about a lot of the 4 new releases in the contact center sections.
So thanks, Edgar. Yeah, as you mentioned, we do have a lot of updates. Some of them are major, and some of them are treated as minor, but I personally really think of those as really huge updates to the system, and all of them are revolving around QA and WFM, which is really interesting and really a big, let's say, a strong start of the year, definitely. So the first one is a huge one. So it's create workforce management schedules without a forecast. So we know that Genesys had an option to kind of build load-based schedules on top of forecasts, and we also had the possibility to actually just create blank schedules and then manually type in and edit those shifts, and kind of just simply replace Excel in a sense, but with that drag and drop schedule builder. But right now we do have the possibility to use Genesys Tree and then have work plans created, have work plan rotations created, and just kind of have the whole configuration of WFM completed and created, but then just kind of create a standardized or let's say really simple schedules that are going to be manually tweaked, and they're not going to take into account forecasting at all. So this might be used for, let's say, cases where a new division is opening, let's say a new line of business, a new business unit, you name it, and you do not have any historical data. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to forecast if you only have a couple of days worth of data, right? So you do need at least, let's say, a month or 2 or 3 in order for the forecast to actually make sense. So you maybe want to kind of start using the schedules built without any forecast behind it, right? So let's actually show that, and it's a really straightforward process. So I'm just going to click on generate, just as we would with any other type of schedule within Genesys. We're going to select start date, so this looks good, and then we're just going to select this create schedule without forecast option, and then we also have some additional options, which is shift start and shift length, and we do have a couple of options there. So the shift starts could be the earliest shift start, the median shift start, they could be staggered or delayed. And this really boils down to if you have flexible work plans created. So work plans with flexible start times as the one that we're seeing. So in the case of having the possibility for this specific work plan to have the start time at 8, 8:15, 8:30, etc. And if you just want to create a really basic, let's say, blueprint for the schedule, which you might want to maybe manually tweak afterwards, then you might just select the earliest shift start or the median or the staggered, which would be basically mixed. And the same goes for shift length. So once again, this does not work for fixed shift start times, basically. As soon as this has been selected, we simply click on generate, and the process is pretty much the same as with any other type of schedule within Genesys. So I can simply access that, and we can take a look at schedules. So let's check on my schedule, for example, and I'm having some vacation days as well. So all of the other functionalities, such as time off requests or eventually shift rates afterwards, keep actually functioning with these schedules. So the only thing that that this schedule type is excluding is the forecast, whereas the totality of the rest of WFM is still in place, right?
Yeah. So it sounds like as a client, I could kind of use this to even do some prototyping, right? So I can go ahead and create a schedule, use everything else, right, within WFM and not having to go through the forecasting. It's a funny story. I've had I was involved in a client conversation where the day that this kind of got released, they reached out to us right away, right? And they asked us, hey, can you show us this new feature? So it's a very high demand feature. Great to see that you're explaining it more.
And I kind of really think that it's, another possible use case is that if you run a BPO, if you run a call center, and you do not have a WFM dedicated resource, and you have, let's say, supervisors, just kind of creating the schedules, you maybe want to make it as easy as possible for them, because you have only, let's say, 30 agents in your call center, or let's say 50, and it could be done within Excel, but this is a great replacement for Excel, definitely, or any other third-party software that you might be using, or that you might have used in the past. So this really a great way where WFM kind of boils down to the configuration that needs to be done pretty much only once, and then you have to kind of maintain it, but it's, once the configuration is done, that part is sorted out. But then it really only boils down to actually working on and working in the schedule builder, where you actually extend the specific segments, move the shifts, kind of work the more supervisory part of WFM within Genesys, and you do not have to bother with the forecast and with staffing as in that.
Yeah, and for our listeners out there, if you need help with your WFM, definitely reach out to Star Telecom. We do offer that service.
All right, and we do have, I'm just going to keep and to stay on the schedules part because we do have another great update.
Can you flash that on screen though, just so we can read it again, Alec?
Sure.
The next feature.
So it's this one, the Wordpress management schedule validation error severity enhancement, basically, which is basically pretty much all these warning notes that are available here. So if I click on those, I can see so errors, general errors, warnings, and information messages, and there is also the possibility to include ignored messages. So right now, we actually have the possibility to decide which type of message is going to be treated as an error, as a warning, as an informational message, or are we going to ignore that specific message, right? And that's being done on the business unit level. So let me just go to the business unit. So on the business unit level, we have a new tab added called scheduling. And then here we basically have all of the possible messages that we can get during the schedule creation, right? And to the right-hand side, we have the ability to actually change how those are going to be displayed, whether those are going to be error, ignore, information, or warning. So for example, agent is not in a work plan. We definitely want to set this as a warning rather than an information. But let's say that agent is not configured to handle any work. We might want to even ignore this because we probably have some users in our management units that don't have any skills or languages added. Anyway, maybe they're still onboarding, so we definitely want to kind of ignore those messages. And we simply hit save, and that's going to kind of reproduce during the schedule generation.
Excellent, excellent, nice.
Right, and we have another small but very big change. This my personal favorite, to be honest. So simplified recording and quality policy configuration. So as I said, it's really not something huge. But then again, if you remember how the policies looked like previously, those
it's very disorganized. I remember
exactly. And then the first time when I accessed that, let's say that it wasn't intuitive at all. I found it to be very, very mystical in a sense, right? So if we now go to policies, we can see that this has been organized. I'm just going to hit create new policy, and right now we can see how those are divided. So we basically have the recordings, so all possible actions that fall under recordings, all possible actions that fall under evaluations, and well, we have only one survey based action available there, right? But
that's
right
much
now
nicer.
we can exactly.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, we also have these small explanations of what those specific actions actually do. So I find this to be a huge update, and this is especially going to be useful for clients that are just kind of starting to dabble and play around with policies and create their own policies maybe, and it's going to be extremely useful also for trainers, QA analysts, and QA admins as well.
Nice.
This is a good example of a change that people that have been using the system before will really appreciate, and the people that start using it now won't realize how good they have it.
Exactly.
Right.
And we have another, so the last one from the contact center part, which is evaluation summary in agent activity view. So this one is just an additional tab that we have on our, let's say, second home tab or second homepage, as I like to call it, which is basically whenever we click on activity. So we can see that this page has been constantly upgraded. So the first step was to add today's schedule. Then we had the personal best and then the scorecards, the leaderboards, etc. And now we have this addition of evaluation summary right here. So it's basically just showing us this week's average and this month's average, right? And then we also have evaluations due for review. So this is my account from an agent perspective, right? So I got 2 of my calls evaluated by somebody, and I still didn't review those, right? So this is where I can actually kind of get some additional reminders in addition to the inbox, because I might just oversee the small red sun, and I probably want to kind of have additional data on all of those evaluations that I need to review and what the scores on those specific evaluations were. And then obviously when I'm having and displaying only 2 evaluations, so it's not a big deal, right? But in production, if I'm an agent handling, let's say, 80 calls in a day, and if I'm getting, let's say, at least 5% of those evaluated on a daily or weekly basis, this is going to be a huge list, right? And it's going to be useful to kind of keep track of all of those evaluations that I still have to review and actually submit my notes on those, right? And
That's a good one.
yeah, it's not big, but once again useful. So as I said, this week's updates have been revolving heavily around WFM QA, and I find all 4 of these to be actually huge updates, even though some of them might be treated, let's say, from a developer side as minor, but I really find them to be very practical and very useful.
Right. Good.
Yep.
Thanks for that, Alec. So the last one, just scroll down there for me, please.
Yep.
Is just an integrations feature where when a user signs out, or so when your organizations use single sign-on, so if you're using a partner like Microsoft Teams or Google or Salesforce as your login credentials into Genesys Cloud, so when an agent or a user logs out of Genesys Cloud, now part of the actions is Genesys will actually push a logout signal over to the single sign-on partner to log them out of the session as well, out of the single sign-on session. Just reading over the release notes, this has an implication, it can have an implication towards billing. So from a Genesys perspective, it helps kind of streamline and eliminate any chances where a logged in session could be billed when they're actually logged out.
Okay. Thanks, Alec. Thanks, Egbert. Thanks, everyone. Looking forward to seeing you again next time.